So, might do a live stream. I don't know. Maybe not tonight. I'm kind of tired, man. You know, it's been a long week. And I'm old. Oh, excuse me. Delicious beer. So I went to Florida over the weekend. And I think I'm going to save most of that for the live stream. Because, well, I have some questions about certain things. Florida, the government letting people, live their lives. Not quite as open as you'd think, because we went to Publix and like Olive Garden and some other places, and you still have to have a mask. But, the restaurants are full and the shopping malls are full and all that. We'll get to that in a live stream. Maybe later, tomorrow, sometime. But I flew on United Airlines. This aircraft was the 737-800. And I'm telling you, Boeing. If it's not Boeing, I'm not going. What a wonderful aircraft. I mean, the engines, this is a newer one, I think. Engines are quiet. The seats, yeah, you're packed in there like sardines, but I'm a fat dude. I didn't have any trouble. I was sitting in the middle on the way down and on the edge on the way back. It was pleasant. Wonderful flight. And, this is a narrow body, right? So there's 3 on one side, 3 on the other in the aisle and all that stuff. Great flight. Great flight. Came into Denver on Sunday, and there was massive turbulence, right, coming into Denver. I don't know what the footage was, maybe 5 or 7, 8,000 feet, something like that. Yeah, it was pretty bumpy, but we landed safely. Everything was great and wonderful. What am I to think about the pilots of this particular aircraft? Down and back? I didn't give 2 thoughts to it. It's like, hey, these men and women are trained, certified by the FAA. They've had, hundreds, if not thousands of hours in the type. I don't care if they have a weenus or the juju's down there. Who cares, right? Well, evidently United Airlines really gives a shit. Have you heard this story? There's a new initiative courtesy of United Airlines. They are set to, why don't we just put it the way it really is, discriminate against white men. Well, what do you mean, Hamster? What are you saying? How would they be doing this? Well, that's illegal. They can't do that. Can they? Well, United Airlines has put together a program, and they have a training facility, apparently the only one among the major airlines that they train pilots, right? And what they're going to do by 2030 is ensure that 50% of the pilots shall be female or people of color. Well, what's wrong with that, Hamster? Are you a sexist, bigot, racist, homophobe, xenophobe? Are you a Nazi? What's wrong with getting more women in the cockpit? It's only fair. Women can fly planes too. Hey, obviously they can. Look at all the women aviators, the Navy, Air Force, whatever. Yeah, of course women can fly planes. No. The point, however, is they're going to have to remove 40-some% of white males to reach this goal. United Airlines says our flight deck should reflect the diverse group of people on board our planes every day. According to United Airlines in an announcement on Twitter, apparently. Quote, that's why we plan for 50% of the 5,000 pilots we train in the next decade to be women or people of color. In other words, white men, you're not welcome. Now, it's interesting. What is the number? What are we talking about here? What are the current situation with respect to pilots? I mean, wouldn't we want to know that? How many female pilots are there in the, commercial carriers and stuff? Well, I happen to have some statistics. Women account for approximately 4 to 5% of commercial airline pilots. And people of color, several percentages more. So we're talking like about 80% of commercial airline pilots are white men. Now, is this discrimination? Is it? I mean, what barriers are in the way for women and people of color to become a pilot? I mean, you obviously have to get training, right? You have to be, flying things. You have to, probably fly regional sort of jump jet turboprop deals for a while. And then maybe you can get on the big, large planes, international and travel in the United States, go from like Denver to Orlando or Denver to Las Vegas or whatever the case may be. What is stopping women and people of color from doing this? Is it discrimination? Is it interest? Are they going to have a program at United Airlines for the flight attendants? You see, we have about an 80-20 white male in the pilots, in the cockpit. Well, it turns out flight attendants, 80% of flight attendants are women. So is United Airlines going to put together scholarships, big money they're putting up for this, to ensure that we have 50% male and people of color in the flight attendant position? Why don't you answer the question yourself? Oh, there's no initiative to do that. I see. But that is not equality now, is it? See, if you want 50% pilots to be women and people of color, most certainly you'd want to have flight attendants to reflect the people on board our aircraft every day. 50% male. No, doesn't work that way, huh? What about mechanics? Is there anything stopping females and people of color from becoming airline mechanics? Well, there's a lot of training, there's certification, FAA gets involved, the government, all that stuff. Turns out that mechanics who take care of the aircraft, fix things, change engines out, do all that stuff, 2.5% of airline mechanics are women. So are we going to have an initiative to get 50% women into that? No? Why not? It's a good, solid job, good money, fairly decent schedule, right? You work, 8, 12 hours a day, whatever, fixing aircraft. No. And why is it there aren't more women being airline mechanics? You could break a nail? Is that right? Is that right? Flight engineers. There are few of those because planes typically don't have a flight engineer anymore. But of the ones that exist, 4.3% are women. Can you feel the discrimination? If women outnumber men in a profession, whatever it happens to be, flight attendant, elementary school teacher, now we're getting to be lawyers, and to some degree doctors, more women are going into those fields. That's not discrimination. That's because men are making different choices with their lives and their careers. Well, isn't that interesting? When it comes to the lack of women in STEM, that's discrimination. When it comes to the lack of men in elementary education, that's their choice. How do they get away with this obvious bullshit? How could one thing be one and the other thing not? Maybe women aren't choosing to be pilots. Maybe it's too much training, too much commitment. Maybe women would rather have a job a little closer to home if they want to have a child, or they want personal time. If you're an aircraft pilot, you're flying all the time, all over the place. You're staying in hotels, you're away from your family perhaps, or whatever. Oddly, the flight attendants don't seem to have a problem with that. 80%. They go on the plane and they go to Tahiti or Taiwan. They're staying there along with the pilots. So I wonder why this discrepancy. 80% flight attendants female, 4 or 5% pilots. Discrimination. Is that right? And so, United Airlines will be violating the Civil Rights Act of 1964. By putting a quota system, we are going to hire 50% women and people of color, meaning approximately 20-30% of white men who want to be pilots will not have that opportunity. That would be discrimination. And the Civil Rights Act of 1964 makes that illegal. So how do you think United Airlines is going to get away with this? Link below. James Maxwell, thank you for listening.